It's Saturday night in Bristol. That can mean only one thing. Yep, it's time to continue Britain's love affair with alcohol.
Well, I like drinking alcohol because it's a good way to relax at the end of the day. It gets rid of your stresses. It's a place to meet your mates. You always meet at the pub.
Just people become more chatty when they've had a couple of beers.
Yeah, get rid of your inhibitions. Always just be yourself a bit more, I think.
Yes, a good drink does all these things, but it also makes you aggressive, makes you sick, not to mention what this bunch will feel like tomorrow morning. And that's why ExperiMental has turned up. We're off to the University of Bristol to meet Professor Nutt, a psychopharmacologist at Bristol University who wants to replace alcohol with less harmful drugs.
I reckon probably about one person a day in the UK, probably 300 to 400 a year, die of alcohol poisoning. And then it's many thousands die of or get brain damage as a consequence of having road traffic accidents when they're drunk. A large number of people get raped, probably the order of 3 or 4 a day as a consequence of being drunk. And then the damage through fights and violence and knifings, and it's probably the order of 5 to 10 a day. So there's a huge social cost of being drunk. So alcohol is a drug which could not be licensed today. If it was invented today, it would be banned without any doubt.
There's some evidence that alcohol actually originated in Neolithic times, when sore heads were a fact of life. Given the fact that the modern freezer was a few thousand years away, booze was a pretty good way of preserving some of the goodness in fruit and berries way beyond their season. And let's face it, with life expectancies of less than 30 years, cirrhosis of the liver was not something ancient man was worried about. Nowadays, things are different. We can see the damage it does every day, which is why Professor Nutt wants to find an alternative.
And I thought, well, we could potentially find drugs which could mimic the effects of alcohol, which would inevitably be safer than alcohol because they're drugs and not a toxin like alcohol. They wouldn't cause the same damage to the peripheral organs.
That's right. If David Nutt gets his way, then it's goodbye to the pint and the cocktail, and hello to the little pill. To simulate the effects of alcohol, any drug would have to work by boosting the effects of the brain's neurotransmitters. Initially, alcohol affects the higher thinking centres of the brain, which is why we lose our social inhibitions and begin to think we're brilliant. Sadly, alcohol soon starts inhibiting our ability to think clearly, before going on to inhibit the workings of other areas of the brain, affecting our balance and muscle coordination.
Talking about benzodiazepine-like drugs, because we know that those have many of the effects of alcohol. And because it's a receptor, and we have drugs which bind to the receptor and increase the effects of the natural transmitter GABA in the brain, and they do mimic many of the effects of alcohol, we could probably get to a situation where you could have an intoxicant that was safe and also reversible.
So what we're talking about here is the opportunity to get drunk safely, then sober up in a matter of moments. This sounds too good to be true, so we recruited 2 drinkers to find out. Dem here is going to hit the vodka, a less than healthy 200 ml of the stuff, mixed with orange juice. While Simon gets a cocktail of a rather different sort, provided by Professor Nutt.
Cheers.
If Professor Nutt's got his mix right, the effects of his chewy little pills will be much the same as the real tasty stuff in the glass. To find out, ExperiMental has set up a number of simple dexterity tasks. Easy sober, but kinda hard to do once the booze has kicked in. So, let's see if the alcohol has entered the bloodstream. 1.65, that's twice the UK legal limit for driving, which is why we'll play hopscotch. So, we can say that 200 ml of vodka is detrimental to the game. But what about 2 little pills? Not too bad. Oh, spoke too soon. Now how about darts? That's the drinking man's game. Whoa, and double nought scored there. And finally, the policeman's old favourite, walking down the white line. First, Dem the boozer. And now, Simon the pill popper. Steady as a drunk. But how does he feel?
At the moment I'm feeling some of the more physical effects as if I was drunk. I'm feeling a bit lightheaded and legs not quite as under control as usual, but not really getting so much of the psychological effects, like getting chatty or feeling more relaxed.
And that's the problem for Professor Nutt's chewy little alcohol substitute. Most people drink for the chatty bit, not for the falling over bit.
Now, it's not identical, and there are some aspects of alcohol, particularly the initial energizing effects. When people begin to get drunk, they often become a bit activated, and that isn't mimicked by that benzodiazepine. Until we can mimic alcohol completely, we won't know whether this is a viable alternative. I do accept that.
But there is one massive advantage to Professor Nutt's pills. They have an antidote. Dem's blood alcohol level will not return to normal for about 8 hours. But Simon here will be as sober as a judge within seconds. To prove it, let's see what happens when he plays darts once more.
Aim for 3 treble 20s for me, please.
108!